Dr. Sebastian Gorka is with us, former national security editor, Breitbart News, Fox News contributor, and many other hats, including a top advisor to the president on national security issues. And Dr. G, thanks for joining me. I've got a lot to ask you about today, but first of all, it seems like we've got a consensus. Strong night for the president, embarrassing night for the Democrats, but overall, people still quite concerned about the president wanting to grant not just amnesty, but actually a path to citizenship for a number that far exceeds the DACA kids or the Dreamers. No one really knows why he's doing this. Some think it's the art of the deal. It's some sort of four-dimensional chess that he's going to win in the end because he's a genius in this way. I just don't get it. I don't get why this was put front and center. Give me your thoughts.
Well, look, I've heard that latter explanation myself, that he simply wanted to be as inclusive as possible and so demonstrate, once the Democrats shot down his suggestion, really who they are, and then he can get back to business and return to a message that is more redolent of his campaign pledge. Because this is a problem, for me, for many of the deplorables, if not all of them. I'm a legal immigrant to the United States. There's no requirement for him to do this. At the very most, if we want to show compassion, he's a compassionate man. Look, I worked for him. He is a compassionate man.
Yeah, there's no doubt.
If we want to show compassion to those who didn't consciously commit a crime when their parents illegally brought them here, there's a very simple solution, Alex. You put them to the back of the line. You get rid of those people. You deport those people who came here consciously over the age of 18. And those who are kids who may be, in their 30s today, they get to the back of the immigration line, and the only thing they ever get in their lives, ever, is a work permit. No green card, no citizenship. You show compassion, they can stay here, they can work, they can pay their taxes and contribute to society, but they don't get citizenship. And that, I think the base would be okay with that, and it would be very, very hard for the Democrats to say, well, that's not enough. Even if you came here illegally, you get to be a citizen. So last night was a triumphant, classic Trump speech, but that one element sticks in the craw. But I don't think the game is over yet, Alex.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I just don't know why this is being elevated at the level it was when the president spoke, and I went through this at greater length earlier in the speech or earlier in the show about how he really does walk through quite clearly that the threat of illegal immigration, it has to do with drugs. It has to do with gangs. It has to do with jobs. It has to do with wages. It has to do with murder. And he goes through all of this in quite dramatic fashion using very powerful anecdotes with audience members. And then he says, and by the way, these laws actually don't matter. You guys can all stay. And you can even become citizens, and even your parents can become citizens. I don't get it.
Well, yeah, I mean, this goes against the hard line that Mr. Immigration Stephen Miller has been touting since the very early stages of the campaign. Remember, we have to remind ourselves, and perhaps the White House as well, the first substantive policy issue that candidate Trump ever spoke about was immigration. It was Jeff Sessions who was the first senator to endorse him for a reason, because he was Mr. Immigration on the Hill. So this is, again, it undermines the key message of the whole Trump campaign, because there is a philosophical message. It's not just a bumper sticker. It's not just MAGA. Whether it's the economy, whether it's ISIS, whether it's immigration, the key philosophical concept behind everything the president represented as a candidate and represented as president today is national sovereignty, and giving people here illegally full U.S. citizenship goes against that concept of national sovereignty. So again, I don't have a good explanation for it. I have been told by somebody who should know that this is a ploy to make the Democrats reveal themselves for who they are. Let's just wait and see.
Okay, well, and I think that the consensus among this audience is as concerned as we are. I think we will wait and see, and let's see if the president has got it correct. Okay, so a couple of things, Dr. G, that were interesting in terms of what were the priorities of the president last night, because a lot of stuff that were crucial to his agenda really didn't show up. He kind of gave a passing nod to China, which has been something where he's been a leader. He gave no reference of radical Islamic terrorism or jihad, which I think will be a big disappointment to some people in, let's say, the Frank Gaffney orbit and a lot of the readers of Breitbart News. But he was very tough on North Korea and very persuasive on North Korea. So there's a lot of highs, a lot of lows on the national security side. Give me your overall assessment as a resident expert.
I think you're right. The balance was more domestic than international yesterday, with some exceptions, such as that incredible moment with the North Korean dissident holding up his crutches. But for me, it wasn't the American are dreamers. People are taking away the Americans are dreamers too as the summary of yesterday's speech. But there was another sentence when he talked about the key themes of his administration, and he talked about the dignity of the American worker, so the dignity you get from a hard day's work,
Yes.
safety for your family from things like MS-13, and the third one, which perhaps was the most powerful, was pride again in our nation, in our flag, a direct stake through the heart of the NFL demonstration.
Yeah, let me read some of these because these are very important, and I noticed this too. I have my own example, but we want every American to know the dignity of a hard day's work. We want every child to be safe in their home at night. We want every citizen to be proud of this land that we love. That's a great line. Another one: a people whose heroes live not only in the past but all around us, defining hope, pride in the American way. They work in every trade. They sacrifice to raise families. They care for our children at home. They defend our flag abroad. They're strong moms and brave kids. They're firefighters, police officers, border agents, medics, and Marines. I mean, these are truly just very subtle digs at the NFL kneelers. I think it's pretty crystal clear here. I loved a line which was the lead headline at Breitbart News for a while last night. Together we can reclaim our building heritage. We will build gleaming new roads, bridges, highways, railways, and waterways across our land. And we will do it, get this, I love this part, with American heart, American hands, and American grit. Great line there. And this is pure Americana, Dr. G.
No, it's absolutely. I mean, it's Norman Rockwell in a speech, and not only that, it's incredibly powerful for what it did to show the Democrats for who they were. Because what do they do when these things are being mentioned? They're sitting on their hands. When he talks about the lowest Black African unemployment since records began, and the Black Caucus is sitting down. I mean, this is wonderful because what happened last night? The president reaffirmed the American way. He reaffirmed the American dream. And what was the response? Identity politics being reaffirmed by the left. And then what happened? And this is the best of all. We dodged a bullet by not having the Clinton cult rammed down our throats last year, with the help of illegal spying through the FISA court of the Obama administration. And what's the response to yesterday's incredibly wholesome speech by the president? Another clan, the Kennedy clan, is rammed down our throats. A white member of one of the most privileged families in American history represents the Democrat Party. I mean, this is how they're going to win back the blue-collar workers registered as Democrats who voted for the billionaire from New York. Last night was triumphant in terms of what it did to show the Democrats for who they are and how their policies still are failing America.
Yeah, we've got Dr. Sebastian Gorka with us making quite salient points. And Dr. G, you're keying in on something that I've really been saying the entire show, which is the Democrats are revealing how disorganized they are, how retrograde a lot of their policies are, how anti-American some of their attitudes are. The fact that their bench is not that deep, they don't have that many great people waiting in the wings. The fact that they had a Kennedy, the oldest family in the Democratic Party, a white person of privilege in the age of the woke identity politics Democrat, to give a speech and then to have it get messed up because of the staging of it, the optics of him with that gross gunk all over his mouth, which I don't know if it's sweat. I don't know if he's got a medical condition. I don't know if it's too much chapstick. It looked horrible. They have a Kennedy posing in front of a broken down car. The first thing that jumped into my mind, of course, was Chappaquiddick. And I'm sure that many Americans had the exact same thought. It doesn't matter the content of the speech, which was largely platitudes and far left virtue signaling. But that's secondary to the optics of it. It just shows a Democratic Party that is much, much weaker, much more confused than they would like to broadcast from CNN.
But not only that, the optics are absolutely right, and the platitudes. The tone was completely wrong. I mean, if I'm advising the Democrats, the last thing I'm going to do is say, be angry. And that was an angry white man, right? And you're not going to win back, Steel Valley in Youngstown, Ohio, because I was there. I flew on Air Force One with the president 8 months after the election to a building, 30,000 manual workers screaming, America, America, drain the swamp. An angry white Kennedy ranting at the TV screen and drooling. That's not going to get you votes in Youngstown, Ohio. So roll on November. It was a treat to see.
Yeah, I think so too. Okay, so back to national security, foreign policy. Any other observations in terms of what was discussed, what wasn't discussed? Are you comfortable with the president? He did make a big point, Dr. G. We're not going to explain our strategy to the enemies. I think that buys him a little cover.
Yeah, no, look, this is, when I was at the White House, this is a point we made again and again and again. The world needs to understand, friend and foe, that we have a new commander-in-chief, that it's not Barack Obama. We will not telegraph it. It is a very good thing in strategy. I mean, just read Victor Davis Hanson. It is good if the bad guys don't know what you're going to do next. It was good in World War II. It's good when you're dealing with, Lil Kim in North Korea. So it really nothing. There was nothing. Although he didn't say radical Islamic terrorism 5 times as he did in his first congressional address, nothing really missing of significance. There was a different emphasis on issues yesterday, such as North Korea and China. It's good because, we can walk and chew gum at the same time. So nothing was undermined in the national security vein yesterday, and certain things were focused on in a way that was, actually very apposite for the threats we face right now today.
Okay, a few specifics. That I do want to mention, that Frances Martell, our national security editor, Breitbart News, was participating in our fact check last night, and she gave a fact check. Yes, that the Islamic State has lost almost 100% of its territory in Iraq and Syria, a brag line for the president. Dr. G, any commentary?
Yeah, but he made the point that so the emphasis for the first year of the administration, this is actually a phrase that came from Steve Bannon, so we have to doff our cap to him, is that the physical caliphate must be destroyed. That was the emphasis. That's priority number one, and that has occurred. And the point that bears reiterating is that the last commander-in-chief told us repeatedly, just look it up, just Google it, that ISIS is a generational threat, meaning your children, my grandchildren, will be fighting ISIS decades from now. And it shows you what happens when you have the will to destroy the enemy, that we come in, new commander-in-chief, new secretary of defense, and the Trump administration compresses generations into just 6 months, and the physical caliphate is literally destroyed in Raqqa, in Mosul, in Syria, and as such, the physical caliphate gone. Now we have to go to the more complicated phase of this war, which will also be successful, which is targeting the ideology, working with countries like Jordan, working with countries like Egypt to make the idea of jihad as unpopular as communism was by the end of the Cold War. So, signaling, yesterday's speech signaled that, okay, phase 1, excellent. Now we have to go to phase 2.
Okay. Next up, that she mentioned that she gives a fact check true to the United States sends billions to countries who voted against the Jerusalem Capital Declaration. This has been a key point, at least in the media, of the national security foreign policy for this president. And yet we still seem to reward people who undermine us and our basic rights as a nation to recognize the rightful and legitimate, the only capital of Israel. Still getting so much resistance, and we're still cutting checks to these countries. It's not a good thing.
No, and again, this is a reaffirmation of that key concept underlying everything in the Trump campaign and the Trump White House, which is national sovereignty. You know, Nikki Haley just nailed it when she said this in front of the UN Security Council. We have every right. It is our right alone to decide what we recognize as the capital of Israel, and the eternal city of Jerusalem is that capital. And the fact, and this is a little bit of inside baseball, the fact that the president stuck to this promise when very few members, I have it on, one of the cabinet members, told me, very few members were full-throated in their support of the president doing this right now, tells you that this is a man who keeps his promises. We had President Bush. We even had President Obama, President Clinton promised to do this. None of them delivered. This man delivered in the first year of his first term. So again, kudos to the president. He keeps his promises, and he recognizes our best friend in the Middle East, which is Israel.
Also, back to immigration, New York City terrorists entered the United States through chain migration and visa lottery. A 2-for-1 fact check true from our own Francis Martel. Crucial point here, Dr. G.
Oh, massive. So whatever happens, whether or not 800,000 or 2 million DACA recipients get to stay here or not, yesterday's very specific statement that chain migration ends, that you will only be, this is very, very significant. You will only be allowed to sponsor your spouse to come to the United States or your child under the age of 18 is a very, very important a flag that's been posted in the ground, and also the diversity loss. America doesn't need help with its diversity. We are the most diverse nation in the world. The fact that that will be killed as well, very good for the safety of all Americans. White, black, yellow, red, all of them are going to be safer as a result of the cancellation of those two programs.
Okay, Dr. Sebastian Gorka, you can tweet him at Seb Gorka, Fox News national security strategist, and he's also the author of the book Defeating Jihad, The Winnable War, which I read and enjoyed very much. Dr. G, any final comments on the State of the Union?
It's a superb moment in the Make America Great Again agenda, and more importantly, it's a very, very good moment for the November election. So stay the course, patriots, stay the course, MAGA movement, and trust in the president.
Uplifting words per usual from a very substantial gentleman, Dr. Sebastian Gorka. Thanks again for your time, sir.